walking along, chatting to his friend, and just fell straight into this huge pond. And he knew to do elbow and climb out, and he got himself out. So that could have been a very, very different story. And that was because from a very, very young age, he was told, how to get out of the water safely. But, nowadays we want everybody to be able to survive if they are in water, in a situation. So I think whether you're paddleboard, kayaking, sailing, just in your dinghy at the seaside with your parents or whatever, when that tips up, and inevitably it's probably going to, that you're going to be safe. I think if somebody just says, oh, I'm going to start a business, for me, that's a little bit, well, yeah, but what are you actually going to do? I think it has to be something that you're really interested in. I was really interested in swimming. And I liked swimming. And I like children, I work with children, and it just, organically sort of came together. And I was very lucky. And maybe we shouldn't say lucky. Maybe we don't say we're lucky. Maybe we say we instigated that. I'm not sure. But I think, right place, right time. Is that a thing? I don't know. I'm not convinced on that.
Hi, Glynis. Welcome to the show today. Let's start just by, I suppose, learning a little bit about you. So, who are you and what do you do?
So good morning. Thank you for having me on today. My name is Glynis and I run a company called Swim with Style, which is a swim school around the UK. Started over 27 years ago. We have several different venues around the United Kingdom. Some of them I run myself as my own swim school. And then we have franchisees also around the United Kingdom as well, running their own swim school using the Swim with Style brand name.
Yeah. So, talk to me about swimming then. So why did you open a swim school?
So when I was at school, I was in the school swimming club, then went on to swim for the local town in the swimming club for many years, and then gave up when I was, I would say, about 14 or 15, which is kind of an average age actually for a girl to be giving up a swimming club. And it was just something that I was always, really good at school. One of the things that I really, really liked. I wasn't hugely academic, but swimming I really, really enjoyed. And then I got into helping in a swim school, then took my first qualifications. Actually, the first qualification I took doesn't even exist anymore because I'm so old. But anyway. Then I became a tutor and I train other people to become swimming teachers as well. And then I decided to set my own swim school up because I love to organise. I love to help people. I love children. I was also a nanny for 10 years looking after children. So combined, it just kind of worked. So that's why I run Swim with Style. And even to this day, 27 years down the line, if I have a child in my class that does their first 5 meters, for example, it's still really, really rewarding. There's no, I haven't become complacent or disheartened. It's still as exciting today as it is the day that I started it.
I guess it's one of those skills that, lots of people do learn, but it's not a natural one. As in children, we learn to walk, and we do that in our home environment and things like that. But swimming is almost like an additional activity, yet quite often, if you go on holiday, the first thing everyone wants to do is go in the swimming pool. Or if you go to the beach, you want to go in the sea. And if you don't know how to swim, obviously there's some safety risks there. Do you think swimming
Absolutely.
should be not compulsory? Maybe that's the wrong word, but slightly more encouraged that everyone should have a basic ability?
Yeah, I think obviously, as you say, it's water safety skills is, obviously the heart of why most people take their babies or toddlers or children to swimming lessons. And it's been on and off the national curriculum over the years. And I was very lucky at all 3 of my schools when I was little, right through from the infantry and senior. We had swimming pools in all of them. So that's probably why predominantly I got into swimming, because it was accessible. Not everybody has got that accessibility. Now, many, many years on, obviously there's lots more swim schools, there's lots more pools, there's lots more even people, we hire hotels, schools, People's houses will come to your house. There's lots of different ways that you can implement swimming lessons. And now, not so much as it was years ago, there's lots more lessons for babies and toddlers, which is where you kind of would like to start them if you can, with the safety side of things. They're not going to become Olympic swimmers by the time they're, a year old, but we can teach them the safety roles. We can teach the parents the safety of how to get your child in, to make them stand on the edge of the pool and wait until their adult or caregiver says they're allowed to enter the water, and all these. And also, it's a magical bonding time for parents, or the caregivers, whether that be the nan, the granddad, the uncle, a family friend, or whatever, whoever it is, to take them swimming. And then if you continue that when they go to their swimming lessons, the sort of the normal group lessons from the age of sort of 4, where they go in with the swimming teachers, they've already got those safety skills and that confidence. So teaching the strokes is so much easier.
Yeah, I saw a stat somewhere that, yeah, I think it was a worldwide population, but only about 50% of people can actually swim. But like you say, standing on the side of the pool and waiting, that's a great skill, because again, on holiday, first thing kids want to do is literally just jump in the pool, not maybe realizing how deep it is. The water might be cold, just giving them that shock, and they're not prepared for it. So just that skill of waiting until it's safe and you've got someone with you is really important.
And that's what we emphasize with our children as well, how to do a nice, safe entry into the water. And my son, when he was, I think, about 5, actually fell in a pond. It was covered in algae, and he thought it was grass. And he, toddled along, chatting to his friend, and just fell straight into this huge pond. And he knew to, turn over onto his front. Well, he went onto his front. I mean, obviously, we do like them to go onto their back, but he could actually do a front paddle. So he scooped himself to the side, and he held onto the side of the bank. And he knew to do elbow, elbow and climb out, and he got himself out. So that could have been a very, very different story. And that was because from a very, very young age, he was told, how to get out of the water safely. If he couldn't touch the floor, he was told to roll onto his back. Obviously, your face is out of the water, you can breathe, shout for help or whatever. But he knew. And I had to say that I wasn't actually looking after him at that time. Actually, it was somebody else. I would like to point that out. So he wasn't actually with me on that particular day. That would be really bad publicity. But and he still remembers that. But he also, I mean, he's 15 now, but he also remembered what to do. Because he had been doing it for such a long time during his lessons. And we teach those things in the baby and toddler lessons. The rotation, the propulsion, climbing in, climbing out. So they're really important skills that, in my opinion, that every child should have, regardless of their age.
Yeah, you made a really important point there, that actually, we think of, and I mentioned it, didn't I, jumping in the swimming pool on holiday and things like that. But actually there's, open water and dangers that exist with ponds at people's houses.
Right.
There's lakes, and quite often it's not a controlled environment.
I think, and also, they are like little whirlwinds, aren't they, children? Like you say, when you go to the beach, they literally will just run off. But if they've been taught at a very young age that they're not to do that. And what you've got to remember with the open water is it's the first 6 inches that are warm. Below that, it's absolutely freezing. So it's the cold
Mm.
water shock is a thing. I prefer my water nice and warm with edges, but lots of people would like, especially during COVID, everybody went open water mad, didn't they? But you can't just let a child, go into that. And it's the same for adults as well, if they want to, suddenly want to do some exercise, and they say, oh, I'll go swimming. That uses every muscle in the body. And, you still got to have those safety rules implemented from the very beginning. And with my adults, they come to me and they want to swim, they want to learn breaststroke, or maybe front crawl breathing is the most common one. But before I even do that, I'd still do the safety things with them. Because I want them to be able to rotate from their front to back. I want them to be able to stand up from a back floating position and whatever. And once they've got that and they're breathing, then we can introduce all the strokes. We don't just go straight in to the strokes. Even the adults have to have those water safety skills at the very early.
You were saying there that swimming actually uses all the muscles in the body, and I guess there is a real health benefit to swimming, and it's also fairly sort of
Absolutely.
low impact on joints, isn't it? So if you've got a
Yes,
yeah, and a bad knee that you can't run, but actually you can swim and it supports you. So
absolutely.
do you see as adults, lots of people take it up as a fitness thing?
Yeah, and that's exactly it. It's low impact, there's no pressure on your joints. So it's a really good activity to do as an all over exercise, but you've still got to do it correctly for it to be beneficial. So that's why we do get a lot of adults that come to us and, they want to learn front crawl breathing because, swimming, doing breaststroke, for example, with your head up for hours at a time is going to put pressure on your neck and your lower part of your back as well. And breaststroke wouldn't be very good if you have bad knees either. But, yes, I mean, you can adapt it for the adults. And as we get older, our joints aren't as flexible. Our ankle joints aren't as flexible. Our shoulders may not be as flexible. And we can adapt it. It doesn't have to be the standard 4 strokes. You could do a hybrid stroke if you wanted to. As long as you're doing it correctly and safely, then of course it has benefits still.
Yeah, I guess, when you do get a bit old and things get a bit stiffer, you don't have to, you know, stick to those strict rules of you have to do this. You're not in a competition. Actually, you can find a stroke
No,
that suits you and your body. And as long as it's safe, actually it's a
absolutely.
really good form of exercise.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. 100%.
And I guess actually, with regard to sort of exercise, it's also quite a good one that you and I joke about this. I quite like sports that you can't use your phone while doing because actually it disconnects you from, everything else and you can just concentrate on swimming.
Yeah, absolutely, you can. But of course, nowadays you can actually use your phone to count your laps. And if you have your AirPods in, you can obviously listen to music as well. But that's if you're sort of like doing, really competitive stuff that you want to be able to count your laps or whatever on your watch or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. And I think, being under the water, whatever stroke you're doing, your ears are going to be under the water. And it's just nice to have that calmness and not have to worry about anything else, checking your emails, answering messages or whatever. So yeah, scrolling, so I think, yeah, I think it's a really good activity to do.
And do you still swim yourself?
I do. I only recently actually got back in because I've just recently had an operation last year and I'd have been quite poorly. So I haven't been able to be in the water for quite a lot of time. And what I've noticed is not being in the water is my upper body strength is not what it used to be. So I need to get back in and do and practice those climbing out of the pools without the use of the steps so that I can get my upper body strength back because it does go so quickly. Honestly,
Mm.
you spend years building it up, and then it just goes like that, doesn't it? Like your fitness. So yes, I'm back in. I'm back in teaching, and I'm back in doing a little bit of training.
Do you think that, you mentioned there the climbing out the pool? Do you think that's an important skill? Because we do often go for the steps, don't we? But I guess pushing yourself up out of the pool replicates what might happen out in the open.
Absolutely. And also, what you got to think about? Every swimming pool you go to may not have steps. It
Mm.
may not have steps to climb out. So you have got to know how to climb in and out of the pool safely. If you are going to do open water, that knowing how to climb back onto your paddleboard or whatever, those safety things are going to help you regardless of what situation you're in. So all of our children, where possible, we try to encourage them to climb in and out of the water without the use of the steps because it is a really important safety factor.
I guess you mentioned, paddle boarding and things like that. And we have seen a real sort of growth in lots of the other water sports. But I guess the foundation to all of those is to make it safe, is to be able to swim because most of them,
Exactly.
you're trying to stay out the
E-
water as such, and whether it's in a kayak, whether it's a paddle board or whatever. But when you fall in, actually, you need to be able to keep yourself safe.
Absolutely. I mean, gone are the days when, the Navy liked people not to be able to swim, didn't they, in the olden days? Because if they couldn't swim, then they used to drown quicker, didn't they? So it was like that's why they wanted people that couldn't swim, which was absolutely crazy. But nowadays we want everybody to be able to survive if they are in water in a situation. So yeah, so I think whether you're paddleboard, kayaking, sailing, just in your dinghy at the seaside with your parents or whatever, when that tips up, and inevitably it's probably going to, that you're going to be safe.
Yeah, and I guess it's having the confidence to know that actually I can deal with this because even I've had it and I can swim. Suddenly you fall in the water and there's that immediate sort of oh like as you panic, but knowing
And
that
it's
actually
cold,
I've got this.
and that's the thing. If you've had those initial water safety skills, not just learning how to swim from the beginning, then you're going to be, you've got a better chance, haven't you?
Yeah, certainly. So, you've grown the business and you're running it, around the country. There's a franchise. How have you found growing a business and certainly a swim school one?
So growing of the business, so I kind of was in a nice predicament really. I had too many venues that were being offered to me. And every time I took on a new venue, I was sort of thinking, oh, well, who's gonna run that? I can't be there and there on that particular day. So I kind of, unless I split myself into hundreds of pieces. So I thought, well, so I started franchising out, just sort of sort of by chance, really. And that's kind of how it's grown. And the more that I've got into franchising, the more I love it because we can have somebody that's come to us as a swimming teacher, or somebody that's completely changing their career from maybe the corporate life, or somebody that's just going back to work after having children, and worked with early years, but maybe not necessarily swimming. So it's all different people. But the process is the same when they set up a franchise, and that's the bit that I really enjoy doing is, to get them the location, to, help find their swimmers and their team. Obviously, they're gonna need some other swimming teachers to grow their swim school. And see them from the very beginning when they get that excitement of their first person that books, and then I get excited when they've got 100 swimmers booked, so
Yeah.
seeing them grow, and then and they all become a little family within Swim with Style as well. And it's just it's really nice. And I'm available really to them, every day of the year. If they wanted to message me on Christmas Day, that's absolutely fine, because I just think having that sometimes when you're running your own business and you haven't got somebody to go to and you've got a burning question, I know how stressful that can be if you think you've done something wrong on maybe the booking system or your advertising or something, and you just want that answer, you want that question answered. So it takes me, a few moments, doesn't it, to answer a message. So I am available at any time to the franchisees, which they really, really appreciate. Sometimes if you go to support, help desks to, massive organizations, global organizations, they might only work Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and you're not going to get that response. And it might be on a Friday at 6, and then all weekend you're going to be worrying about it. So,
Mm.
so I just love to help them out. And they help each other out as well, which is really, really nice. And I think because we're growing as well in terms of the swimming lessons, but I would say 50% of the franchisees are also now tutors, so they can also train their own staff, or their team members or new team members coming in to become swimming teachers, or in water helpers or lifeguards, or whatever. So I think and that lets us grow even more venues as well. So the franchisees are the core of Swim with Style at the moment, because I think they are growing it and they're becoming more successful, and the more successful that their swim school becomes, the bigger that Swim with Style grows. So I think we're going to be adding more lessons. We've got a couple of new venues opening in September, which is quite scarily in a moment, and the summer holidays have just gone. So and we're adding different disciplines on. We're talking about water safety. We're talking junior lifeguarding clubs and stuff like that. So I think that having gone into it accidentally into franchising actually was the loveliest accident I've ever had, because it's actually made Swim with Style what it is today, I think.
And I guess for those people who have taken that on, quite often you see it with business people, they're good technicians. So they're great swim teachers. They're great on that side. But actually to have, a franchisee and someone like you that they can reach out to enables them to get started growing, their side of the business, but with some support. Because, as most people will attain to, business can be quite a lonely place. It can be quite a tough place.
I think so. And I think, when I started the business, many years ago, we didn't have social media, and it just literally was a case of, putting some leaflets through doors and we, and we would get our swimmers and that was that. And then it was word of mouth. But it's a different era now. There's so many other people doing the same thing. And I
Yeah.
think there is room for every person. There's a lot of people, in the United Kingdom that would like to swim. So that it's not, sometimes people say, oh, is the market saturated? No, it's not, because I think most parents put their children through swimming lessons at some point. Um, and swimming lessons are going to come before, dare I say it, ballet or football, for example, or whatever, because it's a life-saving skill. So there's always
Yeah.
swimmers out there. And I think for somebody coming into the market that hasn't run their own business before, it can be a little scary. Um, Especially with social media, if they're not used to, and I think as these franchisees get younger, they're more into TikTok or Instagram, whereas most of our clientele are still on Facebook, so they might not know Facebook that well. So having somebody that can guide them through that, and we all know how crazy Facebook can be with like advertising. So it's things like that, getting their head
Yeah.
around it. And if they can just give me a quick call or whatever to say, right, how do I do this? Or we'll link up and we'll do it together. I think that's priceless, really, isn't it?
Yeah, oh, completely agree. Where has there been a time where actually you've really learned something? Maybe something went wrong, or something stumped you. I mean, in your 27 years of business, there must have been some things where you were like, I didn't expect that when I started. Whether it was a good thing or a bad thing, but I think we come across these bumps, don't we? And we have these learnings.
Yeah, I did have one actually. I had a new lifeguard that started with me one day, and I think she'd been on the poolside for about 20 minutes, and that was it. And she fainted and fell in the pool. I know. It was like,
Oh
oh,
wow.
so who's going to save the lifeguard? Yeah, the lifeguard is there to save the children. Obviously, I was there, so obviously we saw. But it was her first ever lifeguard shift, and she was only 17 in her entire life. And she'd only been on poolside for 20 minutes, and it is hot on poolside, obviously. But we kind of just get used to it, and yeah, bless her. And she did continue with me. And she's a lovely girl. She went off to uni in the end, but yeah, yeah, and that was my first. I was like, well, we've never had to write a risk assessment for who's going to save the lifeguard, which was,
No.
yeah, and I actually had a swimming teacher with me in the water on that day, and it was her first ever shift as well. So all of a sudden, she sort of was there, and she had a lifeguard, floating in the pool. So luckily, she was absolutely fine. She literally had just fainted. But yeah, that was a bit of a like, well, I didn't expect that to happen. So yeah, but it all turned out well.
Yeah, oh, that's a great story. But you're right. You as much as you can do risk assessments and plan for things, actually, sometimes life has that ability just to throw that curveball in, and yeah, who's going to save the lifeguard?
You know, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. So, but yeah, bless her. But yeah, she was a lovely girl.
So, what's next for the swim school? Is it more expanding out, increasing the number of franchises you've got?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I think ultimately that's, although I do still enjoy teaching, I have my own swim school in the town that I live in. And I have actually just taken on another venue from September, which is an extra 5 days a week. I'm already doing 6 days a week. If I'm right, I don't think there's that many days in a week. So ask me later how I'm going to sort that one out. But yeah, so and I think yeah. I think I've got some kind of disorder that I can't say no when somebody asks me to go and teach at their school. I say yes and then work it out after. I think you mustn't ever get stressed about things. I think there's just no need for it. So, and I think as you get older as well, I think you kind of learn those things, don't you? Just not worry about things. Worse things can happen, can't they? And it's a nice problem to have, to having too many venues, too many swimmers. So I think for me, I think it will be, yeah, having more franchises around the country, to expand the classes, I think is probably the way forward. Um, because I think as swimmer style gets more known nationally, we get offered more venues. In my inbox, I quite often go in and somebody's offered me. I mean, we got offered one this week in Cornwall, and that's about 300 miles from me. So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, then yeah, I'll do that. Don't know how, but so it's I'll work that bit out later. And I think that's a lovely, you know, position to be in.
I guess that is a really nice problem to have, having people reach out to you. And quite often in business, I guess there's those two bits of
Absolutely.
saying yes to things and working it out. And secondly, understanding when to get stressed and when not to, because actually quite often these things aren't
Yeah.
as big a deal as you first make them out.
No, no. And I think that's really important to, not to worry about the little things. And I think, if you've got a nice problem, then I think, and also I think most things are solvable, aren't they? I think most things are solvable. And
Yeah.
especially if you just talk it over with somebody, if the franchisees have a problem, they just talk, even if it's just on our, on our group chat, or they talk to each other or talk to me, because sometimes your family or your friends don't really quite understand because they're maybe not in business, and I don't
Mm.
think they can totally ever. They can be, empathetic with you, and sympathize with you, but they don't actually understand the problems. And I think sometimes you need to speak to somebody that is actually in that situation, to understand that, the problem, and be able to solve it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've absolutely loved chatting to you today. Now, just to finish off today, if someone, certainly not in your industry, I wouldn't want to encourage anyone to become your competition, but if someone was thinking of starting up a business, what advice would you give to them?
Think first of all, my personal opinion, I think you need to be passionate about whatever business you're going to set up. I think if you haven't got the passion, um, I don't think it will work. I could be completely wrong. I think if somebody just says, "Oh, I'm going to start a business," for me, that's a little bit, well, yeah, but what are you actually going to do? I think it has to be something that you're really interested in. I was really interested in swimming. It's
Yeah.
and I liked swimming, and I like children. I work with children, and it just, organically sort of came together. And I was very lucky. And maybe we shouldn't say lucky. Maybe we don't say we're lucky. Maybe we say we instigated that. I'm not sure, but I think, right place, right time. Is that a thing? I don't know. I'm not convinced on that. Did we make it happen, or did we not start that business because we may have been at the right place, right time, but we missed that opportunity. We weren't brave enough. And I think maybe sometimes you have to be brave and take risks, as long as the risks aren't
Mm.
going to hurt anybody. And, I think sometimes you have to take risks, especially to expand a business. And I think you've got to be hungry, you've got to be ambitious, and maybe is that a question, isn't it? Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? But that's a pretty good question, I think, because I think, where do you see yourself in five
Yeah.
years' time? What would you like to achieve? And I'm very much a spreadsheet person. I have everything on a spreadsheet and I work my way through it and I see where my goals are, what I'm going to do, what I'm going to move forward. And I am very methodical in that sense. I'm very organized. I think you need to be organized, ambitious. And I would say just go for it, because what could possibly go wrong?
I love that. Yeah, great insights. And I agree with you. Sometimes, we say, oh, I was lucky, but actually, we put in the hard work and we made sure we were in the position to
Absolutely.
gain that
Yes.
luck, I guess.
Yes.
You've got to be there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Glynis, thank you so much for chatting with me today. I wish you all the best of luck with, growing your business. Certainly, you're clearly passionate about what you do, and equally what you're doing is
Very much.
benefiting everyone who comes through your school, because, learning a life skill such as swimming is so important. So yeah, keep at it.
Absolutely.
And thank you once again for joining
I
me
will.
today.
Heart Mermaid, thank you very much.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Balanced Ambition podcast. I genuinely hope the stories inspire you as much as they inspire me. If you found value in today's conversation, please share it with a friend. And remember, by subscribing, you won't miss an episode, and it would truly mean the world to me. Stay balanced, and I'll see you next time.